All right, Mario. It looks like we are live. Let me know if you guys can hear us. This is a mic check. Make sure I'm not um, repeating or echoing. And you can go ahead and talk, Mario.
Yeah, guys, just making sure they don't try to take us down again or give us some funny problems. So just let me know what's going on.
Yeah, it's been a crazy past couple of weeks, man. It really has.
It's been ridiculous. I never thought that I'd see the country come to this point, but then again, since President Trump's been elected, I think we've seen a lot that we didn't think we were going to see. It's just, at least before, they were a little better at faking it about making everything political. But once he got in there, it's like, it's all political. Like this impeachment we saw today, I mean, that's just pure politics. They didn't care about truth. They didn't care about evidence. They didn't care about who really did what at the Capitol. It was about let's stick it to Trump one more time.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree with that. Like Trump said, I think it's a political witch hunt, probably the biggest one that I've seen in a long, long time. Actually, no, not a long time because the first impeachment probably was the biggest
Right.
political witch hunt
Right.
that I have seen before this. So, man, this is politics, but we're going to get into that in this live stream. We're going to break down the impeachment stuff. I'm going to catch up with Mario first because I know you guys haven't heard from him on my channel. Get a quick take from him in regards to the last few weeks in politics, kind of how he, was feeling up until the Capitol. And then after that, I'll get his quick opinion on the Capitol, and then we'll get into the impeachment from there. So, how you been, Mario? How's the last couple weeks have been?
Man, I can't really complain personally, because I don't think anybody wants to hear it. We're all kind of going through the same stuff here as far as these lockdowns and, not being able to be with family, the holidays, everything. So, aside from that, I'd say that I'm actually more disgusted than I've ever been with politics. And it's crazy because I got into this because I really enjoyed politics and it was something that I, obviously put a lot of time into. And at this point, I've been kind of tuning out. So I've had people that I'm friends with or family members that I'm usually their go to guy for politics. And they've called me about stuff. And I said, oh, I didn't really see that. Or I don't really know about that because I've just been shocked at how everything's transpired. So that's really been eating me up. I usually watch Tucker on most nights. I haven't really been watching him, and it's like I know what I'm going to hear from the mainstream media, and I don't like it. So I've just been trying to kind of keep back and just kind of going with the headlines and then getting my own, forming my own opinion on it because I just can't listen to the news anymore.
Yeah, man, I agree with that. Especially when it comes to CNN, MSNBC, those that obviously have a left wing political bias. I think they're the worst offenders. And I think that the blatant hypocrisy that we're seeing right now from them is really sickening. And it's sad because this is what our journalism has devolved into, which is basically tribal warfare at this point. And it's one of those things that you know kind of being a part of the media now, right, in my own sense, I really see the insides, right? Like I kind of see how these people go about forming their opinions and the agenda, right, that they're pushing, and just how nefarious it is. And it's one of those things where just watching it unfold is just truly breathtaking stuff in the sense that they can single-handed they can not condemn the BLM protests, right? They can praise that and ignore that violence, but yet, when the Trump supporters or people on the right, you know, do something, like that, like what happened at the Capitol, all of a sudden they're all on it. All of a sudden, they're on the side of the police, and we're not hearing all this defunded police talk anymore. So it's just interesting to see the dichotomy kind of unfold here in parallel situations.
Yeah, I mean it's laughable to hear people like Nancy Pelosi or Chuck Schumer or Nadler or any of these people talk about what's patriotic, what's American, what's scary to them. And let me just say something. I don't condone the violence that took place in any way, and I didn't condone any of the violence that took place over the summer with the riots. But I will say, at least, at least this was happening to them for once. You know, that you've seen them cowering in fear, like all these business owners and like all these people who were in their homes all summer and, you know, all spring, all fall, basically because of all these riots and protests that were scared to leave their house, that were scared somebody was going to break in, that people were coming onto their property. And for once, it happened to those people who were trying to downplay it. You know, Harris and Biden, they were starting bail funds for people who did the same type of stuff. And the reason they're so upset now is it because it happened at the Capitol, that the people actually went after politicians. And like I said, I don't condone that. It wasn't right. We should never resort to that stuff. But at least they see what it feels like. And then they understand why we feel the way we do, why we don't want to be curled up in a ball in back of our store because people are breaking the windows and they're armed and they're there to do us harm. Now they see what it feels like. So I think at least it was a wake up call for them. And maybe in some fantasy I have, they'll wake up and realize how hypocritical they were when they made light of all that violence this past year, you know?
Yeah, I hope they do too. And I think that this is the test that's going to happen under Joe Biden and Kamala. What happens when a police officer puts some hot lead in a black man that's unarmed, and these people go crazy because Joe Biden is, based off his past, is, not necessarily pro criminal justice, but it's going to be interesting to see exactly how they respond to that and how they're going to frame it. I think they're going to flip the script on Biden. I really do, because the media is all about money. They're corporate first, political second. And sometimes it flip flops, depends on who in office, like Trump, for example, right? Like, obviously, they weren't working in their best financial interest by going after Trump. But I think with Biden, he's so boring, they're gonna have to go after him in some way, and that's an easy way to do it, especially considering how they went after Trump supporters and the Capitol protests and all that good stuff. I think it'll be a lot easier for them to segue into, hopefully condemning the bill and protest, because otherwise, how are they gonna really make money off of it, right? That's the first thing that I'm
Right.
thinking. But who knows? Maybe they are completely on the side of the Democrats. I just wouldn't be surprised to see them do a 180 under Joe Biden and Kamala, because they're gonna need something to get views. And Biden's so boring. Kamala's not giving them anything. Like, the media will they'll get desperate.
Yeah, and I think they already are. I'll tell you what, that talk about people showing their true colors now, something that really disgusted me, and it was something we always knew, but that Anderson Cooper, when he was talking about the everything that took place at the Capitol, and he was talking about the people who were there for the rally as well, and he said that line about going back to their Holiday Inns and the Olive Gardens and everything. It was like, he totally just took the mask off there and just said, people who don't have a lot of money, who can't afford to go to somewhere where they're spending $500 a dinner or whatever Anderson Cooper does, that they're less than, and he felt good about shaming poor people just because he assumed they were white
Yeah.
people. So as long as they were mostly white, he really wanted to dig them. And I hope that people who are Latino and black and anything other than white look at something like that and say, well, geez, I eat at those places too. I stay at Holiday Inns too. Like, why do you think you're so much better than me? And you think that's an insult you're going to use to put me down? It's like, who are these people? So now it's like you see how they really feel about us.
Yeah.
So it didn't matter how peaceful things were. It didn't matter what took place. He still felt that way. It's not like he just felt that way all of a sudden because they committed some sort of violent acts or broke a window. And I think that we're seeing a lot more of that now, including from the Republicans. They're showing their true colors too now. We just had 10 vote to impeach the president, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, man. I'm laughing because I was just staying at a Holiday Inn the last 2 nights. So,
you see what
yeah,
I
I
mean?
see what you mean.
Anderson Cooper, man.
Hey,
Anderson.
yeah, exactly. I'm a regular guy, but yeah, no, I definitely understand where you're coming from with that, and we're gonna get into the impeachment stuff. But I do want to ask, regarding the Capitol protest, just so I can get kind of your firsthand, like, what were you thinking at the time? I actually went to the rally, and it was pretty lit, right? It was pretty lit. There was, a lot of people there, very excited. And then obviously, once they start marching down to the Capitol, things got a little bit more crazy. But I want to know what your firsthand reaction was when you actually heard the news or saw it on TV.
To be honest, it wasn't so much shock as it was why. Like I was just thinking, no, because this was the last thing we needed to
Yeah,
happen. That's why it really, really feels like this was organized, or at the very least, that there were people that infiltrated to get things going. And look, I never discounted that discredited that theory when people were saying it about the protest this summer, right? That there could have been a couple right wing people there
yeah,
that said, hey, all I got to do is throw one brick, break one window, and these people are going to go wild. And that's how that you get into that herd mentality where people start thinking like that. So I don't doubt that there was somebody who said, I'm going to break this window in right here. And they really weren't supporters. And it's like, this is too perfect. This did nothing to benefit us. There was not like they were going to change the election results. All it did was enable people to take this kind of action against the president to try to keep him from running again. And that shows you how scared they are of him, because that's what this whole process comes down to, is that they don't want Trump to run again. They can't handle him going through the primaries, getting on the ballot again, and having to stomach the thought that he could be president again. They're too soft. They're too big of snowflakes. They need a safe space, and that's going to be the ultimate trigger for them. And they're trying to stop it now. That's all this is about.
yeah. I agree with that. And I also agree with what you said in terms of how this, protest that turned into a riot was definitely a setback for the movement because it confirmed everything that the liberals kept telling everybody that Trump supporters were, right? Which are violent white supremacists that basically want to overthrow the government. And I mean, again,
Right.
and that's why I felt to come out and condemn it because, and the president just came out and he's done this for the last couple of days, and I'm really happy he's doing this. Is unequivocally condemning the violence. Like that's the right message because you don't want to prove to them that they're right. You want to prove that they're wrong. We don't get the same privilege that Black Lives Matter gets with the media. You know what I'm saying? So we got to understand how
Right.
the enemy moves, how the enemy operates, and adjust our behavior from there. We can't fall into the trap. So I do think that it was a step backwards because if before that happened, I was 50-50 about Trump running again. He definitely would have been the front runner if he ran again, and he probably still is. But I think after this happened, I don't think the Republicans are going to let him run on their platform. I just don't, and that's why I also think this vote is is so controversial right now and so up in the air because they don't know if they want to let him run on the platform again or run third party and basically guarantee that the Democrats win in 2024.
Right. And I think you're dealing with two different things right here. One is that there's a lot of Republicans that don't want him to run because they want to run, especially these senators, even guys who have been loyal like Cruz or Hawley or, Rubio. They're planning to run if Trump doesn't. So it would be a lot easier for them to see something like this happen and then pretend they're outraged about it and say, I can't believe you did this, but now they got him out of the way. So I wouldn't be surprised if behind the scenes a lot of these people are working to do that, because this was really awesome. And I think I already assumed it was true, but just hearing it, that there was a poll done on Monday and 91% of Trump voters said they would vote for him again. So you have to take that number in when they're telling you he's destroyed, it's this and that, he's done. 91%. So anybody out there right now in the Republican Party, especially these senators, who's going to vote to remove Trump from office, or if he's already out by the time it happens, which that's the most likely scenario, vote to try to stop him from never running again and never holding any office, then they have no shot. Because the difference with Republicans now is there's only two camps. You're either a Trump supporter or you're not if you're a Republican. And the people who support President Trump are much more dedicated to that. So if somebody's running for office and they turned on President Trump and you were a Trump supporter, you're probably not going to vote for that person. But if you're somebody who just wasn't pro Trump, but the guy who supported him is running, you still might vote for him. That's not your deal breaker, but it will be deal breakers for Trump supporters. So I think politically, it's basically suicide for any Republican right now to come out against Trump. The only reason I think McConnell did it is because he just got reelected to a 6-year term, and he's ticked off that he's not majority leader right now, and he's blaming President Trump. But all these guys are looking at self-preservation, and they're putting themselves above everybody else. So I think that if they don't impeach him and stop him from running from office again, if he doesn't get convicted in the Senate, he's going to run for nothing less than at least stopping these guys from getting the nomination. Whether he can win again now without that 10% support, I don't know. But I think he's going to run again, and I think his support is still pretty solid if it's 91%.
Yeah, I mean, I've been thinking that President Trump was gonna run again since basically I figured out how much money he was raising, right? Like the last 2 months,
Yeah,
200,
yeah,
$300 million. I'm like, yeah, you running again, bro. But, um,
right.
you know, I think you make an interesting point in regards to McConnell because my thinking is this. I think it's clear that McConnell wants to cut the GOP off from Trump at this point. They want to just completely drop him, right? Now, I think that's a mistake. I think that's a mistake. And the reason why I think that's a mistake is probably similar to, what you're saying in the sense that a Trump supporter is probably not going to vote for a non-Trump supporter, knowing that that non-Trump supporter didn't support the president. But a non-Trump supporter who's a conservative may be willing to vote for somebody that's backed by Trump or Trump himself, and it's not necessarily a deal breaker. So I think that when McConnell is out here entertaining the idea of potentially convicting the president, to me, I think that that signals that they just don't care. Like they at this point, like there is a major party realignment on the horizon, and that they're gonna move forward without Trump. And it's going to be interesting to see exactly what that major party realignment is. Are they going to adopt some of the populist rhetoric and policy proposals from Trump? Or are they going to go back to business as usual? I just don't see how they can go back to business as usual and have a party realignment. I just don't see it. Um, However, I think that if I'm just playing devil's advocate here in terms of thinking what McConnell's thinking. I'm trying to put myself in McConnell's shoes. If I'm McConnell and I want to get rid of Trump, it could be worth it just to go ahead and sever it now and just be done with it. And then from there, try to win back the base over time, even if you lose, a couple of elections. At the very least, you keep the corporate kind of money train coming in. Now, that's just devil advocate. I'm not trying to, you know what I'm saying? I'm
Right.
not endorsing
Yeah.
that, right? Obviously, I don't want that to happen. Nobody more than me wants Trump to be able to run for office in 2024. But I'm just playing devil advocate in terms of what McConnell could be thinking. They could just be willing to bite the bullet, man. That could just be it. I don't understand why you would even entertain it at this point. Because you can come out and condemn the president unequivocally. And you can come up with other types of punishments or whatever. Kevin McCarthy, the minority House leader, has come up with like 4 or 5 different things that they could do in order to rectify the situation that don't include impeachment. So, some people may say that's being soft, but I just think the Republicans right now, even floating this idea, is just playing in the Democrats' hands because they've tried to take out Josh Hawley, who I think is the number one contender after Trump, and Ted Cruz is obviously up there as a contender as well. Poor old Lindsey Graham, he's not a contender, but he's got a lot of backlash and whatnot. But basically Hawley, Cruz, and Trump have been the 3 targets from the Democrats, and I don't think that's a coincidence. I mean, they haven't really been targeting any reps. They haven't been targeting Mo Brooks, who, if you want to talk about, rhetoric and who was kind of, going along with it, he was kind of one of the main guys. They're not targeting him because he's not a threat to run for president. Josh Hawley and
Right.
Ted Cruz and Trump are the biggest threats for the GOP in 2024. That's why they're going after him. And I think the Republicans going along with this charade, I think is really going to hurt them. Because like you said, if they cut off if Trump, they're going to make him a martyr. And I think that's the last thing you want in reference to keeping the peace, one, and two, keeping the party together.
Yeah, no, I agree with you 100%. And it's their actions tell you everything. Like we just said, that those are the people they're targeting, and it's because they fear them. If they really thought Trump was this crazy guy who tried to overthrow the government and he's finished and he's going to go down in history as one of the worst presidents of all time, you wouldn't be going through all
Yeah.
this. You just let it go and say, geez, this guy, he's finished. But they know he's not
Yeah.
finished. And that's the same thing with Hawley and with Cruz. They're saying, oh, they're comparing him to Nazi collaborators and all this stuff. Oh, but you know they're going to get reelected, and you know that if they run for president, it's going to come down to them being the final couple
Yeah.
people. And the reason they're not going after somebody like Mo Brooks is because they just don't see him as a
Right. Yep.
threat to run for a national office. So, yeah, it's a great point, and it's 100% true. And somebody had written in here that the Republican Party is nothing without Trump, and I agree 100%. He expanded the party, and there's so many people who came out that were only voting for Trump. And I think they're dead wrong. Say what you want about the Georgia elections, but let's just assume the numbers were true, right? Whether the system was messed up, whatever. Let's assume the numbers were true. The only reason they could lose a state like Georgia is because Trump wasn't on the ballot. So McConnell and all these people blaming him, the elections were nail biters like 1%, and you didn't have Trump on the ballot. So that really makes me question how Biden won there. You know what I mean? Because more people turned out for Trump. And it's like he was a help, but you can't get people when he's not on the ticket to come out and vote. It's so hard, you know?
Yeah, I was reading some of the kind of the summary of the Georgia elections again from the mainstream media perspective here, guys. In terms of what happened, a lot of Trump supporters apparently just didn't show up, and that could have been because Trump was not on the ballot, and it could have definitely affected their chances. But yeah, McConnell is trying to throw Trump under the bus with Georgia. He's trying to squarely pin um, the loss, the L on Trump. So, and he's apparently he hasn't talked to Trump since he came out and said that Joe and Kamala were president elect. So he didn't even talk to
Right.
Trump during the stimulus talks, which is interesting because I was certain that McConnell, and I know that he was passing down a message through Kevin McCarthy and probably Pat Toomey and the other and Lindsey Graham and other foot soldiers, but I was sure that McConnell was in direct communication with Trump in regards to the stimulus, but apparently, the media is saying that he has not talked to the president, and that McConnell is apparently he's pissed at Trump, like pissed.
Well,
So
and I think it's not just it's not just that they're trying to blame him for the loss. I think it's more than that. I think it's what they want is to go back to the old way, where it's just regular establishment
oh
politics,
yeah,
and that things get handled in a certain way, and all the big money, whether it's pharmaceutical companies, banks, anybody you can think of, any major industry right now wants to just go back to the old way that you get your sit down with somebody like Joe Biden or the Clintons and you get your way, and you just line their pockets, whether it's through a foundation or whatever you need to do. And Trump came in there and shook up the whole thing. And most of these Republicans have only been loyal to him because they thought he was going to stay in power. And then once it appeared that he had lost the election, you started to see some changes. And then now, the second they realized that the sixth wasn't going to happen and they were sure he was gone, then they're just using what happened at the Capitol to show their true colors. Now, somebody like McConnell saying that when really, to be quite honest, I think they're just fatigued from Trump. That they can't, it stresses them out so much to deal with him, to see if he's going to get upset, to see what he could do next. He's unpredictable, and they couldn't handle it. They want somebody like Biden in there so they can just go back to their old school way, you know?
yeah, no, I 100% agree, and I think that's why they're seriously considering this. And I just that's a mistake. If you're gonna cut him off and take from Trump what worked, right? Like that's what they should do if they're going to cut him off. But if they're not gonna cut him off, if they're gonna cut him off, they should not go back to their old ways. And I think what they
Right.
ultimately want is they want eyes off of politics They want eyes off of the Republican Party because in a typical situation, right, without the pandemic, without the stimulus, without Trump, nobody would have been paying attention to what's going on in Congress. Nobody would have been watching those Senate debates and things of that nature. Nobody would have been watching that stuff. And
Mm-hmm.
the old Republican Party thrived off that. They thrived off people not really paying attention to what's going on. And then lo and behold, as soon as people start paying attention, people are like, wait, what? This is what y'all be arguing for in Congress? That $2,000 stimulus checks are socialism for the rich, which was a line that McConnell
Right.
definitely thought was going to land well with fiscal conservatives and conservatives in general, but it just did not. People was like, bruh, don't feed that to me right now. I need the money. Trump said
Yeah.
$2,000 checks. Don't come with me. Don't come at me with that. That's basically what happened. And
And he's done a great job with that. Like just being a populist like that. And he really has his finger on the pulse. He knows what's popular and what's
yeah,
not. And also, there's been times where he's stuck to his guns on stuff where he might have thought, this might not be the most popular thing, but I'll still do it because it's
yeah,
right. But for the most part, he knows what to say, when to say it. And look, he is the most popular Republican president ever. I don't care how you slice it. I mean, you look at the increase in votes. You look at how many people were coming out for his rallies and everything. I mean, it was unheard of, and he's not going anywhere. And it's funny that it all goes back to, I think it was 2015 when he first started running, and could have been 2016, but when they said, oh, he could shoot someone in the middle of Fifth Avenue and he wouldn't lose his supporters, and you see something like this now, and they say he's finished, and it's like 91% are still right there. So there's not really much he can do at this point. The Democrats are telling you this is the worst thing a president's ever done, and that he's so dangerous he can't even stay another week because he has the nuclear codes and all this stuff, and 91% would still vote for him. Yet, let's look at the poll numbers for Richard Nixon and see how many would have still voted for
yeah,
him if this is the worst thing a president's ever
yeah,
done. It's not even close.
yeah.
It's not even close.
Yep. Before I talk about exactly what they're accusing him of doing, because I think that needs to be touched on, but before I will say back to the $2,000 stimulus checks, if Biden passes this and they get the $2,000 stimulus checks, they have to give Trump credit because they were not talking about $2,000 stimulus checks until Trump came out and demanded it. Now see, the Democrats are smart. This is how I'm telling you, the Republican Party is going to lose because they let the Democrats take the good ideas. Trump comes out with this. He says $2,000 stimulus checks. Democrats across the spectrum, progressives, establishment Democrats, Trump supporters agree. The only people who don't agree with it are the establishment Republicans. They all agree. So basically 80% of America agrees on this, right? Democrats are smart enough to be like, let's just adopt this. Let's just take it. Like, this is our thing now. You know what I'm saying? And roll with it. And then they're going to roll with Trump's idea into Biden's stimulus package, which will probably get passed because they have the majority now. And it would have all been because of Trump. They wanted, like, that's the part that frustrates me about the Republican Party. It's like, you gotta open yourself up to some new ideas, right? You know what I'm saying? Like, you
Right.
are, listen, like, migration patterns in this country. There's people moving from New York down to the South, from LA to Arizona. Like, they're flipping those states blue, right? So the thing is that at some point you have to adopt. You have to change your strategy a little bit in order to try to, appeal to some other folks. And Trump did a good job of that. That's why he got more votes in history for a sitting president. Like I said, again, obviously, let's discount Biden, but that's why he got so many votes, right? Like, and I think the
Right.
Republican Party needs to pay attention to that and tap into that because that's what the Republican Party is missing. And if the Republican Party did that, in my opinion, right, they could take some of Trump's ideas without actually the all the rhetoric from Trump. They would never lose another election because you've already seen that Trump,
Right.
again, take away the rhetoric. He can get the progressives on his own side. He can get the establishment Democrats on his side. He can get the Trump supporters on his side. He can get everybody on his side. So the Republicans, if they paying attention, they would never lose another election if they just took some of Trump's ideas. You don't have to take all of them. Just at least consider what made the man so popular. He really spoke to the working class citizen and what they needed. He understood, during the pandemic, we shouldn't be shutting everything down. We should be trying to keep jobs open, keep people's livelihoods in check. And he really spoke to that. And even when we were punished because of the Democrats and the dictators, Cuomo and what's his face out in California and Big Gretch in Michigan,
Yeah,
Newsom, yeah,
Newsom.
Newsom, he realized, okay, it's not these people's fault. Let's get some stimulus to these people. Let's these politicians playing games. Let's do 2000, right? Again, not everybody agrees with it. I understand, but it's a popular move. That's what populists do. They push popular ideas. But anyways, I just feel bad because the Democrats are basically going to cash in on Trump's idea. And again, it's just a symptom of what's wrong with the Republican Party, in my opinion. But moving forward, in terms of what they're actually impeaching him about, which is starting a riot or an insurrection, as they love to use, and I've never heard the word terrorist so much from the Democrats than I've heard in the last week. But I read the speech from Trump. Obviously, I was there, but I also read the speech, and he specifically told them to march to the Capitol peacefully to make your voices heard.
Hmm.
They're trying to use metaphors like Trump saying we need to fight like never before. We need to fight, 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 or fight harder than ever before. Whatever, right? They're using metaphors that a lot of people use when you're in competition with somebody, whether it's a physical altercation or not, right? They're using metaphors to try to say that, oh,
Right.
that's inciting violence, when he specifically said, go peacefully. Okay? Now,
Right.
the Republicans are missing an opportunity here because they should call the Democrats out on this BS. They should be like, listen, we don't condone what happened at the Capitol, right? We don't condone it. However, the president said to go peacefully. We understand the lead up to this. We understand how you guys feel about the president's claims, and obviously all the Republicans are now on board with the president's claims. We understand how we got here. But to say that he actually incited a riot and caused them to go there when he specifically said go peacefully, I think is weak, man. And I think the Republicans going along with it, with that line in the speech when he told them directly to be peaceful, I think it just shows that
Right.
they're just done with Trump. That's even more evidence. They're just like, you know what? We don't even care. We'll just throw the man under the bus, regardless of whether it's just or not. And that to me just it mind boggles me what is happening right now with the Republicans, and they're just letting the Democrats just just beat them on everything right now. It's crazy.
But I think that again is another just political miscalculation on their part because, like you said, they're not vigorously defending Trump. And I see a lot of Republicans who have defended Trump and like the comments on Twitter, whatever, people are saying to them, oh, like 4 years from now, you're going to answer for this and like you're going to try to walk this back. So they're really thinking about what the ramifications are. And I think they truly believed that Trump was toxic at this point and that they wanted to distance themselves and they thought that he lost a ton of support. And now with these polls coming out saying that he still has 91% of his voters behind him, I think they're going to have to do a real, recalculation here of how they want to play this. And I don't foresee any Republican getting elected that's anti-Trump. The only way I see that happening is in Democratic districts
Yeah.
where they're getting a decent amount of the Democrat vote. And most of those guys I just consider rhinos flat out, So, but I can't see anywhere where you're in a conservative area where you can say you don't support Trump and 90% of your voters do. It's political suicide, it's career suicide. So, with McConnell, like I said, I don't know how old he is, but I'm guessing he's in his 70s.
I think
He
he's
has
like
another
pushing 80,
six.
bro.
Yeah, and he has another 6 years to go now. So chances are he's probably retiring, you know, and that's what I'd look at. Either people are retiring or they just have no more political ambitions
Yeah.
or they're in Democratic districts. But anybody who's in a red state and they're a senator or they're a congressman in a red district who's saying that they don't support President Trump, it makes no sense because he is the party now. He's still the leader of the party. And when he leaves, he's still going to be.
Yeah, no, that 100%. And I just think it will be interesting to see how that's actually done. Um, in the social media censorship era that we're in right now. Facebook lost like $35 billion in market cap in one day. from banning Trump, and I think they lost even more today. And Twitter definitely has been down in the dumps. I mean, Twitter's been a wasteland without Trump. I don't think these social media Trump
Oh
companies are going
yeah.
to ban him for that long. I really don't. I don't think they're going to ban him permanently. I think that they're gonna. I think what they're gonna do is I think they're gonna focus harder on the conspiratorial aspects of those who support the president. But I think they'll let him back on because, especially if they don't actually keep him from running in 2024, because just him hinting at running in 2024 or being eligible to run in 2024, I mean, the excitement is going to re-energize because people are going to be like, oh no, we want Trump again, and he would, again, in my opinion, be the front runner for the GOP. And hopefully people will have short memories, right, in 4 years where they'll be like, okay, well, this happened 4 years ago, but, what was the real aftermath, right? Will Tom heal these wounds? So I just think that Trump, wherever he goes, there's a lot of money that follows. And I think that there's some social media company that's going to be smart enough to realize that, okay, this man's not worth banning. He's integral to our business model at this point. Um, so,
Well, let's be honest, Greg. Look at the regular
yeah.
media. There's a reason that they're
What's
pumping
up?
this so
Yeah.
hard because this is their last crack at the ratings. Like this impeachment and Trump, they still stay relevant somehow, and they're just grasping for it right now. And that's the funniest part is that the second, if he was out of the picture and says, "I'm just going to go down to Mar-a-Lago and golf the rest of my life," they're in the toilet. Nobody cares about politics anymore.
Yeah.
So they need this to keep going. I wouldn't be surprised if they drag this impeachment trial on for a month or 6 weeks and do all this stuff once he's gone, just to
So,
make this saga.
so they were saying that, so McConnell came out and said today that he's not going to do an emergency session in the Senate to get the trial going. Basically, what he's saying is that we'll wait till the 19th. I ain't gonna rush it. Let me think about it some more. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
So
correct.
the plan is, at least what I've been reading, is that they've been negotiating with Biden in order to push back the Senate trial like 100 days in order to let Biden focus on his agenda in the Senate. Um, and that would basically drag this whole impeachment thing out and put it in limbo. And I guarantee you, that would be a gift to the media because again, that means Trump is relevant again for another 2 or 3 months, right? With the
Right.
trial just kind of hanging out in limbo, and that seems like something that the Democrats kind of want to do, because they want to let Biden under his first 100 days. They don't want to have him his first 100 days in office. They don't want to be distracted by Trump, essentially, right? Like the impeachment trial would overshadow anything that Biden is doing. But I think that that's a double-edged sword in the sense that for the Democrats, because that's going to keep Trump alive for the next 3 months, especially if they decide by that point when everything's cooled down, the Republicans might just be like, well, everything's kind of cool now. Like, we don't want to, impeach him, right? And that's the thing. Like, the
Yeah.
Republicans can't play with this because if, well, how many votes is required? 67 to impeach, right? They can't
Yes.
play with this because if
Yep.
they vote to impeach, then it only takes a simple majority in order to add that provision that he can't run again. And there's no point in doing impeachment unless they're going to try to keep him from running again, because that simple majority, the Democrats will have that with Kamala being the tiebreaker, assuming all of them vote to do that. So,
Right. And that's the thing, though. They can only do it with that conviction
yeah, they
first,
only
and that's the
exactly,
thing. And it's like they're not getting that. And
yeah.
let's be honest. If you couldn't vote for him in the Senate for the last one, then there's really nothing here. I mean, this really isn't a crime. Like there's nothing. Put it this way: if this was a crime, they'd be talking about actually charging him.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know,
it would be.
especially after this.
Yeah,
The second he comes out of office, they'd say Biden would be out saying that, hey, I'm going to get the DOJ and we're going to get involved, and it's just because he's president. And even Mueller and when they were saying that, they said, well, it's just we think he committed obstruction, but it's because he's a sitting president. But if he was out of office, I'd think about charging him. If this was as bad as they say, then Biden would take a forceful position because it's bogus when he says he doesn't want to divide the country after the way he spoke. You know, the things he's said about Trump supporters already is really divisive. So if he really believed that, he'd be saying now, impeach him. He's saying, I'm leaving that up to the Senate. He won't even say to impeach him. He would be out there saying, when I get my attorney general in there, he's going to look into this and he's going to be charged with, you know, A, B, and C. And that's not happening because it's not a crime. I mean, anybody who watches that to say he's responsible, it's BS.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. I think all this is just the Democrats taking advantage of people's emotions, right? They're taking advantage of the
Yep.
situation to say, see, we told you this is who these people were. You have to be basically shunned forever and pushed to the furthest edges of society to never be heard from again. That's essentially what their
And that's
dream.
their
Yeah,
dream. They've been trying that for years, even before Trump. They want to make sure that conservatives are silenced and that we're these terrible people. And you know what I'm going to do? And I encourage everybody in here to do the same thing. Once Biden gets sworn in, go back and take all old tweets, old Facebook posts from famous people, from friends of yours, from anybody you can find. Go back and then post the same things and replace Trump with Biden and watch how people flip out. If you say, you know, Biden's racist or he's sexist or he's the stupidest man I've ever seen or whatever, anything you want that they said about Trump, and they'll flip out on you and say, you can't talk about a president like that. This is terrible. You're stirring up hate. You're creating division. And it's just like what they do when they say terrible things about white people, you know? And you say, just replace that with black or Latino and see how horrible it sounds. And they can't understand that because they're doing it to the other group, you know? And I feel like we should do the same thing to them and then say, oh, no, this was just something somebody said about Trump, but say the same things and they'll realize how bad it was. If we would have talked like that about Obama, they'd want us in jail, you know? It's
yeah.
like,
No, I 100% agree. I think that this whole unity thing from the Democrats is just garbage. I mean, the president put out a message today that I just did a video on that I think was a very, very, very powerful message of unity. And it's crazy because, you know, when the president is in that zone, when he's precise and he's on point, he's on message, I think that's when he's at his best, man. And, you know, yeah,
awesome. Well, he
yeah,
was
he was
awesome.
awesome. And it's like, if Joe Biden went out and said the exact same thing that the president said, but he was addressing BLM, I'm like, it's nothing I can be able to say. There's nothing I would be able to say negative about Biden if he said the exact same thing the president said about what happened at the Capitol. But you'll never hear that from Biden. But yet people want to frame Biden as some type of unifier in chief when he's really a divider in chief. That's what he is, and they thrive off of division because what part of it you got to blame the progressives because the progressives are too stupid to realize that Trump supporters are actually their best friends when it comes to trying to take down the establishment Democrats, but they're too stupid to realize that, and they just refuse to even entertain the idea of even conversing with somebody that support Trump or even a conservative. And that's really the ultimate downfall at the end of the day is that Trump said at the end of his speech, he said, we got to talk to each other. We need to start talking to each other. That is 100% true. We're not talking to each other enough. That's the problem. And Trump addressed some things that I think really hit the nail on the head that I wish Joe Biden would actually start saying. I wish the left would take responsibility for the BLM protests. I wish they would just own up to it. But the fact that the president can come out and own up to, okay, yes, what happened in the Capitol was violent. I condemn that. No true Trump supporter would do that. Hey, at the end of the day, regardless of whether you say, oh, it's for the impeachment, he's just trying to make himself look good. It's a great political play, right? So I got to give him credit. And,
right.
and if something happens on the 20th with Biden's inauguration, they can't say that Trump caused it because Trump came out and unequivocally said, this is not a part of my movement.
Right. And let's be honest. Let's be very honest here. If Biden would have came out and went to areas where these riots were and asked people not to do this, there would have been less violence for sure because 90% of the people were his supporters, you know, but he never did that. He stayed silent and watched and watched. And then, you know, you had the people on the left coming out and saying that, you know, violence is the language of the unheard. That's what Dr. King told us and all this stuff. And or riots is the language of the unheard, you know, and it's like, man, you guys hyped this stuff up the whole time. And he never came out and did that. And not, you know, he bailed people out. And it's just crazy to me now that after this one day where this happened, they're acting like they forgot about everything that happened. And we can't let them forget. I just think that we need to stay vocal now. And everybody's making this about Trump. This should really be about how ridiculously hypocritical they are. It's just unbelievable.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's very hypocritical. Um, but at the end of the day, we just gotta. I think that's why we gotta understand that we don't have SJW protest bias like they do, and that's why we just have to be the better people and continue to show the hypocrisy, right? Like, I mean, ideally, there's nothing that happens like the Capitol protest again. However, I know there will be more BLM protests, and when there's more BLM protests, the media will not be able to run for this. They cannot. They cannot run from the hypocrisy. But did you see that Marjorie Taylor Greene, the representative, said that she was going to try to impeach Biden on his first day in office? She was introducing articles of
Yeah,
impeachment.
I know. It's funny. My grandfather actually just called me tonight and told me about that, and he was pretty pumped up. And I was like, you know what though? They really should if they get the House back, because if this was the type of impeachment, they need to show that this is how you do it. They should do it in 20 minutes, just like the Democrats did, and just say, oh, Joe Biden, sold out to China, whatever charge they want
Yeah,
to make about him, and then say, let's vote. We got the majority, and that's it. No evidence, no nothing. Nobody speaking, no witnesses, just
just
impeach him. And but that's what they want,
yeah.
and if we that's the thing, we never play their game. They always, at least they stay united. They defend everybody in their party. Every time the mainstream media calls out a Republican, they all turn on him and say he's
Party,
out of the
yeah.
party. This guy's no good. They defend Ilhan Omar. They defend
Talib,
Rashida
yeah.
Tlaib. They defend anybody saying wild stuff. Maxine Waters, whoever, telling people to approach people in public. If a Republican said that, they'd be impeaching him. They
Well, I
are.
think the problem with
They're,
that is that it's the narrative, man. It's the fact that they've made uh, they've made racism, right, or acts of racism, the single biggest crime and sin that you can commit in this country, right? And they associate racism with those on the right. So that's how they establish that privilege. It's all about narrative and just spinning, right? When you know Trump supporter does something, it's super bad because it's grounded in race. It's grounded in white supremacy. However, when Maxine
right.
Waters says to beat up a Trump supporter, that's okay, even though it's violent. It's okay because she's saying to beat up a Trump supporter who's a white supremacist. So white supremacists deserve
Right.
to get beat up, and they deserve to have violence done against them. That's the problem, right? If that is that they've elevated this race thing to be the number one priority in this country right now, and nothing else. It's all about race. I mean, Biden's coming out and saying we have to help black, brown, and colored communities, and just completely, just straight up, just excluding other Americans, right? Like he's just straight up, just
Yeah.
again,
Look at this COVID
yeah,
relief bill. Tucker was pointing that out and said that it literally says the priority should be businesses that are owned by people
color,
of
yeah,
color, and said black or whatever. And I'm thinking, so even if a white owned business is doing much worse and they're about to close their doors and shut down, but there's a black owned business that could be doing all right, you help the black owned business. It's like, what? Imagine if that said white instead. It would sound terrible. Like they just they don't think that there's racism on the other side, and they get rewarded for it apparently because they're winning. They have all three, the House, the Senate, and now the presidency, and it's like they come out with that after preaching this garbage for years and all this identity politics. It's like that's what's working on the American people. That's anti-American. Their whole platform is just mind-blowing to me that half the country supports that. That's why I think a lot of us have a hard time believing these election results, to be honest, is because if you're a normal person with common sense and you're just a decent person, how could you support all that stuff? It shocks me. You don't have to be some radical to see that stuff's terrible.
yeah. No, I 100% agree with that. Man, it's gonna be tough. It's gonna be tough for the right moving forward. And I think that one thing that we have to do is that we just have to step our game up when it comes to pushing our narrative, right? Pushing our narrative, pushing our side of things. trying to, change the framing, right? Framing is everything in politics. If we can do that, and just kind of stay afloat for the next 4 years, but I think we'll, I think we'll make it, but it just depends on what's gonna happen with this thing that's going on with Trump with impeachment. I think a lot of it hinges on that, because if they choose to not let this man run again for president, it's over, man. It really is. And what McConnell came out and said, it really does scare me, because if he goes on board with it, Trump's done. Like the Republicans follow
Right.
behind him. You know?
Right. No, and I agree, but that's why it's like I think a lot of us would leave. People who are registered Republicans won't be. People who voted Republican won't, and the party will really be finished. They won't win an election again. And in red districts, what's going to happen is anybody who didn't support Trump's going to get primaried and they're going to lose. That's people want strength. They want that's what people why a lot of people gravitated towards Trump. A lot of people who weren't into politics came out because they liked that he said what he meant and he did everything that he said. He wasn't just another politician. And if they're going to abandon that now and go back to the old way, then Republicans are finished. So it's really unfortunate that they could be this stupid, for lack of a better
Yeah.
word, to not notice what's happening around them. That this party grew because of President Trump, and without him, you're going to lose. I'd say 10 or 20% of voters right now are only involved because of Trump. He would if it was another candidate running, they would get crushed. It's like if it was any other Republican nationally without and it wasn't Trump, they would have lost. But he was able to pull out that win in 2016 because he brought in so many new people. And even now he had, at least 75 million votes if you believe those numbers, and it's like nobody was touching those numbers but him.
Yeah. No, I 100% agree with you. I was just thinking, if they do vote to not let him run again, every single time a BLM protest happens and they don't condemn it, they should introduce articles of impeachment every single time. Like no, just it
Yeah.
doesn't matter. Just out of the principle. Anytime a
Mm-hmm.
BLM protest happens, or Antifa protest, articles of impeachment. You're impeached. Like like you know what I'm saying? Like you're not condemning it. You're silent. Silence is violence. That's what you guys told us. So you're impeached every single time there's a BLM protest and you say nothing. You're getting impeached. That's what we got to start doing. Sending a message.
I'm all for
Like,
that. I'm all
you
for
know?
that. I really think, I truly believe that the blessing of Trump not being in office for 4 years, if this all pans out now, which we're a week away, is that we're going to have an opportunity to try to take away that narrative from the left about being so racist because they
Yeah.
just use it to point to Trump. And with him gone, I think our number one goal should be to point out that the left is basically all about big corporate power, Hollywood, Silicon Valley, all these people who have money, pharmaceutical companies, right? They're these all these tech billionaires. They're all aligned with them. They could care less about us. They could care less, and it's really a class thing at this point. It's those elites that control the left, and then all of us working people are on the right, or they join the left because they think we hate them, and it always comes down to that. And I feel like that the black community and the Latino community is full of good, hardworking people. And if we can let them know we don't hate you, they hate all of us. They hate
Yeah.
you. They hate us. They hate all
Yeah.
of us because we don't have the money that they have. We're not out schmoozing at the country clubs with them. And they got this narrative going that the Republicans are the party of rich people when it couldn't be further from the truth.
Yeah.
Everywhere
That's
in the country that's got
yeah.
zip codes that make over 100 grand, they're all voting
Democrat.
Democrat.
Democrat. Yeah.
You know, go into
Yeah.
these Republican neighborhoods in West Virginia and tell me how it's all these rich people. They ought to be ashamed of themselves for lying like that. But we have a chance to wake people up and let them know that if you're just a traditional American person that has normal values, then you belong with us. If you're some far out like Looney Tune, then okay, go be with them. But man, it's a mess over there, and I think we could really have a chance now to work on this for the next couple years.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I think we definitely got to start flipping the narrative, and working on the left a little bit. I mean, I think getting some of those people that are more moderate, that can kind of, get on board with, us, but not necessarily can't get on board with the loony left, because they're gonna on social stuff socially. This is where I like to think about politics for the most part. It's like on the political spectrum. Like you got the social spectrum, and then you got the economic spectrum. The left is going to continue to go left on social issues, I think, 100%. And I think the further left they go on social issues, I think the worse they're going to appeal to the moderate, because I think this stuff is getting out of control. I mean, you saw that they introduced the new rules in the House where you have to use gender neutral terms. You can't say grandfather or grandmother or
Right.
things of that nature that's gendered, because you don't want to offend anybody. It's like, man, the society that you're transforming us into is really not a society a lot of people want to live in. And I think that the Democrats doing
Right.
this is good for the Republicans, because it gives them more ammo to say, look how loony these people are. Like, look what they believe in. Look, you know what I'm saying? Look at this, look at that. And the Democrats are foolish, because the people that you're going to win over with little silly stuff like that is not going to be nearly as much as the people that you're going to lose from silly stuff like that. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And I think a lot of people need to understand that this country is still pretty socially conservative, if not socially moderate, because everybody is kind of into the whole race thing now, where everybody's kind of socially conscious about race. But at most, it's moderate, and it's most likely center right socially, in my opinion. That's where
Right.
this country is at. And that's something that I think the Democrats are really going to drop the ball on, because they're going to be try to be too woke, and it's going to turn off a lot of people. And I think that's an opportunity for the Republicans, and they should probably stay where they're at right now on that in that political spectrum socially. But I wanted to ask you, moving forward, what are your predictions in regards to how many votes they're going to give in favor of impeaching the president, aka, well, convicting the president, and then not having him be able to run again.
I think it's definitely going to be under 10. So I don't think they're going to get close, as in the sense that they're going to get like, 14, 15, 16. I think it's definitely going to be under 10, but I can see like off the top right now that 3 or 4, like I can see that happening. But aside from that, I can't imagine the calculation these senators would make to do that. I just can't. Obviously, like I could see Romney, I can see Murkowski, I can see even McConnell doing it, but I don't think he ultimately would. Um, but just a handful. I really can't see that happening unless something else were to come out somehow where they could show that this was somehow more influenced by President Trump, and I don't know how, because just from what I've seen that day, what I'm understanding is that most of this stuff that was happening had already been planned. There were people already doing this stuff while President Trump was speaking. This was already taking place. They were breaching the walls and doing this stuff. So it wasn't like it was just this totally peaceful day. Then President Trump speaks to some people and they're like, you know what? I got a pipe bomb.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like that isn't how it happened. So I don't see, if they really just look at the facts, where people are going to get convinced that he's the one that caused this. I think that their better argument is that he caused it by everything he was saying leading up to this point. But if that's the case, by saying the stolen election, everything, but if that's the case, then Democrats are responsible for everything that happened this summer. Everything. There's no, all their
Yeah.
rhetoric was way worse. So if that's the way you want to go, that anytime you say something that could get people fired up in any way and get them and impassioned about something, come on, look what they did, talking about, oh, George Floyd would still be alive if he was white and stuff like that. And you're telling people this, and you don't think cities are going to burn? Come on.
Yeah, I heard somebody make an interesting one. They said that they don't agree with impeaching Trump for inciting a riot, but I think Kim Iverson said this actually, but she said that she would agree with impeaching Trump for basically what he tried to make Pence do, which is honestly, Pence had no power to do it. The vice president cannot
Yeah.
overturn the election. So some people do think that would be a legitimate impeachable offense. You got thoughts on that?
Yeah, again, that's not impeachable, and he was telling him to do what he had within his
Yeah,
power. Like he was saying, do what you can, like step up to the plate or whatever. Obviously, if Pence couldn't do something, then he couldn't do
yeah,
it, right? So if he would have sat there and said, "I'm not certifying the results of this election, like this fraudulently need to go back to the states," somebody would have just stepped up and been like, "Hey, you don't even have that
yeah,
power. Like we're moving forward,"
yeah.
So it's not like he was telling him to do something illegal. It's different if he was telling Pence to do something that's
Legal,
actually
yeah.
illegal. That's something that's constitutionally debated.
Yeah.
Besides, there's people that think that he could have done something, but it wasn't something that's black and white that says the vice president can't do anything and Trump knew it was illegal and then he told him to do it. All this stuff is so
And
gray
that's
at best, but they pretend it's a slam dunk.
yeah, and that's the
Like
thing. And
it's
that's the thing too.
illegal.
I actually do legitimately think that Trump thinks the election is stolen. Right? Like that's when people go up here and they say, "Oh, Trump's lying, Trump's lying." I don't think Trump is lying. Right? Like I think he actually really believes it. And the reason why I think
78% of his
yeah,
supporters do. Go ahead, not to cut you off, but same poll, 78% still on Monday said it was
exactly,
stolen.
and that's what I'm saying. Like I do think that he believes it, and the thing is, that's why when people say he's lying, I'm like, I don't think he's lying. He may be, he may have, been listening to, some people, but at the end of the day, to say that he's lying about it and impeaching him for that, I think that that's also a little bit much of a stretch because again, I would say that, perpetuating the myth of police brutality and LeBron James going out there and saying black men are being killed in the streets by cops, right, and white men, and that we need to be worried about this, and that we're being hunted down in the streets. How is that not something that he should lose his job in the NBA for? You know what I'm saying? Like, how is that not
Right.
inciting riots and protests, right? Like, how is that not an actual crime? How is, AOC coming out talking about, how protests are important and that when you talk in a certain way and you using a nice voice or whatever and you trying to play nice, that doesn't get you anywhere. You got to make people uncomfortable. She talked about making people uncomfortable, and again, I don't understand how this stuff is not categorized as that. I don't understand how the Maxine Waters thing is not categorized as that. So I just think that this is a slippery slope for the Democrats, man. It really is. I mean, if you convict this man over this, right? Something that's not even concrete, right? It's one thing if you change it to something that's actually legit, but this is not legit at all, and you're just playing off people's emotions. It's like, bruh,
Right.
I would not want to be in a position where there is you know, a Republican House or Republican Senate that's trying to impeach a Democratic president or something like that. You know what I'm saying? Like, they don't want to be in a position like that moving forward in the future. And, even Joe Biden, when he talked about gun control, he's like, as much as I want to take away assault weapons, I can't. Because if I use my executive powers to take away assault weapons, then the next person is going to use their executive powers to do something even worse. So I think the Democrats are missing that principle that a lot of politicians try to stick to in reference to how they make decisions. And I think they're really getting out of control here, trying to tug at people's heartstrings in regards to this election. So, man, it's me personally, my prediction, I think they're going to get 60 votes. It's not going to be 67, but I think you're going to have Romney, what's his name, like Sass, Pat Toomey, John Thorne. Uh, I think you're gonna have those types that are going to vote yes on this, and I think they'll get about 10. But I think ultimately it comes down to McConnell at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And McConnell, interesting enough, he said that the vote on the electoral college certification in Congress was going to be the most consequential vote of his life. Nah, bruh. This is going to be the most
Yeah.
consequential vote of your life. You spoke too soon
Absolutely.
on that.
Absolutely. And for the whole, not just him. See, that's what's funny is some of these guys who are going to do this vote, like say like a Romney or whatever. Obviously, he just doesn't like Trump, but he's the type of guy that wants to have this certain legacy or this image of himself where he can say he was disassociated from Trump. So this is his way to do it. And I think there's a couple guys within the Senate that are that way, that are just saying, you know what? I'm not like him. I don't want to be like him. I want to take this as my final chance right now to separate from Trump. So my kids and my grandkids will be like, oh, he wasn't like that, because they're ashamed or embarrassed or whatever it is, or jealous of Trump, but they want to disconnect from him. So they'll use that as an opportunity. But I only see people doing that who don't plan to run again, like I said, because the party, if they actually got 17 of them and they removed him, well, at this point it'll probably be after he's gone. But if they said he couldn't hold office again, if they convicted him and then passed that resolution barring him from holding office, the party's finished. Like, that's it. There's nobody. 91% of his voters are going to sit there and say, how can I vote for these people? Like, it really would be the end. So if McConnell is the catalyst for that, by him saying, I'm ready to vote for impeachment, and he gets enough people on board, that's the end of the party. So that will be the most important vote of his life and of the existence of the Republican Party.
Yeah. No,
that would be it.
Yeah, it is. He spoke too soon, man. He spoke it into existence, but he spoke too soon on that. So it's gonna be interesting to see what happens. I think they'll get about 60. If McConnell chooses not to, but if McConnell votes yes, I think it's over for Trump. But I'm hoping and praying. Don't do it. What is your thoughts on? So some people are saying, like Alan Dershowitz was making an argument that they actually can't impeach the president if he's not in office. What do you think about that? Like, there's some scholars that are saying.
Well, that is.
Go ahead.
That is an argument. There's been somebody impeached before. I believe they said it was a judge, or no, secretary of war. There was the secretary of war.
I read that.
But then they also said that there was that judge, I think Hastings, who was impeached, but they never passed the resolution to say he can't hold office, and now he's a congressman. And he was removed as a federal judge, and he's been in Congress for like 20 years since he was removed, because they forgot to pass that resolution as well. But yeah, I think it's a legitimate question if you can impeach a president, because the whole point for the conviction is that he's removed from office. But I don't get what the point is now, because he's not an elected official at that point. So you're impeaching somebody who's not in the government. So I don't understand how they really do it. I know it has been done once, but it's because nobody challenged it. If somebody would have took it to the Supreme Court, they might have said right then and there, yeah, you can impeach him. But if it doesn't get brought to the court, then they're not just going to take it up by themselves.
And that's the thing, man. That's why I'm like, Trump, like, I mean, I'm sitting here thinking, okay, I'm fully prepared, like, after, Trump is going or whatever and everything stops, and hypothetically, I'm going to lose views, I might lose subscribers, like, obviously people are going to check out the politics, whatever, right? I'm going to have to, really stick with my folks that really are still interested in whatever's going on. But Trump's not going anywhere because the media is not going to let him go anywhere. Imagine that, man. If they do choose to impeach him, move forward with it, how long that legal battle is going to go. You know what I'm saying? In terms of like, okay, because this is like a constitutional thing. They're going to be arguing about this forever, right? In terms of, can they actually impeach him after the election, right? Especially if they vote to convict. It's like, can they actually impeach him, right? Trump should probably start suing now. The next day he's out of office, he should sue, right? If they can't push it through before then, he should start suing and be like, no, this is unconstitutional. We can't go through this. That's what he should be doing. And even that, I mean, going through that legal battle, that would drag this thing on for so long, and that would be kind of what Trump needs to kind of stay relevant and in the news. Because Twitter and Facebook and big tech and Wall Street. Wow, Wall Street is really pulled a rug from Trump, but they're trying to
something.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say it actually. I don't think there's a 1% chance that if they do pursue this after the fact, that Trump won't have the lawyers take it to the Supreme Court, number one. So then even if they do it, they might say that it's invalidated. So even if, especially obviously if they voted to convict him and then said he couldn't hold office, he would definitely challenge it. But I think just once the process starts, after he's out of office, they're going to contest it. And imagine how great it'll be if Trump wins in the Supreme Court, and then he can actually show that this was basically a witch hunt and that they were doing something unconstitutional. They were all violating their oaths of office by not upholding the Constitution. They were violating it just to get a cheap shot at President Trump one last time so they could stick it to him. So I think that would give him more political capital, and it would make the Democrats look even
Yeah.
worse if that's
Yeah,
possible.
yeah, exactly. They was trying to subvert the Constitution for political gain,
Mm-hmm.
and that's
Right?
a way that Trump could
Exactly.
reverse this on the Democrats. That's actually a good point.
Yeah.
If he started to sue
Yeah.
and challenge this in court, which he should. I mean, he got enough campaign money to do it. His campaign is going to rely on that. He probably should. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? Go ahead and try to challenge. So,
I hope he announces soon. I hope, like, the second this impeachment thing's over, he's like, and now I have a special announcement for my candidacy for
24. Yeah,
2024.
exactly. I
Yeah.
will not I'm not letting the dirty Democrats impeach me. This is a witch hunt.
Yeah.
This is the worst thing ever. This is so un-American. I've never seen anything like it with third world country.
Exactly. Exactly. I'm ready for it.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I'm ready for it too, man. I think, man, again, I just don't think this is going to be over anytime soon. I think that they're going to drag this out. The Democrats already said at the very least they're going to try to get out of the way so Joe Biden can do his thing for the first 100 days and maybe push it back. But all that's doing is that at that point, after Biden is done doing whatever he's going to do for the first 100 days, that puts the attention back on Trump. And then Biden can really start to, shake things up under the table. I think is what the plan is from the Democrats, which means
Absolutely.
Trump is probably going to be around for a minute.
Greg, push these subs out here for me, man. I can't plug myself anymore. And I've been blowing up this chat, telling people to
Oh, my
sign
bad, my
up.
bad, my bad. I'm sorry. No,
No, I'm just,
we was in the conversation. You know
I've
I
been,
plug you every time,
I've been
bro.
trying. No, I know. I was trying to engage in this chat, but I forgot the slow mode's on. So like a couple times it wouldn't let me type anymore, and I was like, ah.
Oh yeah, I had to turn it on, man, because my chat was filled with trolls, man.
Oh yeah. No, I know.
So I mean,
I'm gonna have to start doing that.
make sure I make sure I uh I shout you out. Y'all follow making a case with Mario Fratto. In case you already haven't, I'm
Yes.
pretty sure most people have. I mean, I feel like
Yeah, I know, but guys, they've taken like 1,000 subs from me since all this purging started. So I know I'm not to Greg's level yet with breaking the 100K. By the way, Greg, did you get a plaque from YouTube?
Man, I don't know how that works, man. I really don't even care, but I looked into it. But apparently, you got to get a code from YouTube, so I might have to stay here for a while. Maybe they want to make sure I don't lose, however many subscribers, just to make sure that I stay at 100K before they actually send it out. But I haven't received the code to get the
Maybe.
plaque, the plaque yet.
Yeah, I also heard that they decide who they give it to. So certain channels, if they think they're like divisive or whatever, they don't give them to them. So I'm sure now anybody who's conservative is probably never gonna
No.
get one, but I'm still gonna I'm still gonna try to make it there, man.
Honestly, I can just make my own
You
plaque,
know,
man. I can just make my own plaque.
you know what? I might make you one. When's your
What's up?
birthday?
You've been waiting a minute. But
Oh
yeah,
yeah.
man, I'm a Scorpio. I'm a November baby.
Oh, what day?
November 2nd, right before Election Day.
Oh, that's my cousin's birthday. Yeah, that's my cousin's birthday. Yeah, at least you got one last birthday under Trump.
Yeah, no, I did. I did. Yeah, right before. I mean, I didn't get a great birthday present, but
I
it is
know.
what it is. But yeah, I don't know, man. YouTube, yeah, let's talk about that for a little bit. The conservative censorship. That's a good topic to dwell on while we up here. I think it's weird, man, because I think that conservatives are stuck between a rock and a hard place, because these platforms are censoring conservatives, especially those who, promote certain theories about the election and Trump in general. They are banning those people. I think that is going to make it rough for a lot of people out there, especially the ones that are continuing to talk about it no matter what. I think it's only a matter of time before YouTube cracks down on those people. But I think ultimately, it is just going to make the problem worse in terms of how alienated the right feels. I think that it's going to just contribute to the divide in this country right now. When it comes to censorship, I've thought about this a lot, because the libertarian in me, right? I do have a libertarian streak, thinks that, these are private companies. We shouldn't be interfering, right? We should try to keep government small, let them do their thing. The market will work it out. However, these guys have gotten so big that they can effectively kill their competitors if they want to. I mean, that's what happened with Parler. I mean, Amazon decided they was going to, kill it, right? Like, again, Apple and Google, they all came together like a shadow government and decided that they were going to kill Parler. And to me, that is scary, because that is capitalism that may be out of control, right? That these companies that are effectively public message boards, and I get it, they're really not, but that's what they are effectively, in my opinion, from a practical perspective. Censoring somebody on Twitter is like censoring them in public, right? I mean, it's become an official form of communication. And you saw Angela Merkel, who's not necessarily a friend of Trump, come out and denounce this type of censorship for that reason, because Twitter is basically a public message board. And
Right.
that's something that when you see somebody that's not necessarily a friend of the president that's coming out and defending the president, especially at a time where everybody's bagging on the president, it's cool to bag on the president. I think really says a lot about how messed up Twitter was for censoring him like that. I really do. I think that they're not doing it. I think that I would subscribe to the private company argument if they were doing it fairly, if they were doing it across the board, right? Like if you're going to take down somebody like Trump, you got to take down AOC, you got to take down Maxine Waters, you got to take down these other people that I would describe as extremists as well, and inciting violence. That's if you want to define Trump that way. I don't define Trump that way, but if you're going to define him as that, I would throw AOC and Maxine Waters in the same category.
Yeah, and let's let's just my favorite thing to do, obviously you can tell when we have these conversations, is just reverse it, because if something's true, then it needs to be true when it's the other way
Yeah,
too, right? Like I said, if you say something about white people, say it about black people. If you say something about violence and they say something, right? Look at the standards here. So imagine now, instead, let's say Facebook was hosted by some conservative webmaster, whatever the hell it was. And he said, look, all this violence that's been taking place over the summer, people have been using Facebook groups to organize these BLM protests. They've been using Facebook groups. You know what we're going to do? We're just going to shut down Facebook completely, take it away from everybody because some people on there used it. And I'm not even saying it's true that people used Parler to organize for the Capitol protest, right?
yeah,
But let's go with that. You remove a whole platform because you said so. Can you imagine? Or if people said, hey, a lot of people have been saying stuff on Twitter or whatever, so we're just shutting down all of Twitter. There's no way. The only reason they're doing this is because this is a conservative platform, right? So it's so obvious. They never consider that, and people would freak out if that happened. If some billionaire was like, yeah, I'm removing Facebook or I'm removing Twitter because they're saying a lot of left wing stuff on there and it's dangerous, they would be the first ones crying. All the left would be saying, this is a dictatorship. We're being
yeah.
censored. This is like Nazi Germany. This is fascism. They'd be going insane. But because it's us, they say, well, they're protecting us, right? And that it's just for safety and it's dangerous. And this, I mean, it's unheard of what they're doing now. And I think somebody in here, it was Hilda, was saying she's European and that she appreciates the freedom we have here, like more than it seems like the left does anyways. And I've been thinking about that a lot, that we get down on Europe a lot as far as thinking they're socialistic, their government's too left wing, but even their leaders are saying, "Whoa, you're taking a president off of there." So at the very least they have a little more common sense, because here people are acting like this is all just fine and dandy, and it's like, "Are you serious? This is the leader of the free world and you're removing him because you didn't like a speech he gave, essentially?"
Yeah,
That's just
that's a good point with the European leaders coming out and doing this. You know, they are they are definitely closer to absolute socialism than we are. in the political spectrum, and to see a nation that's that far left, right, even more left than the Democrat Party, probably more left than AOC for the most part, for people on that scale, right, on a political spectrum, to come out and tell Twitter that censorship is wrong, it really tells you a lot, especially considering how in Europe there's free speech laws are definitely a lot more stricter than they are here in the States. So
Right.
that just gives you um, a bit of perspective in regards to how messed up what Twitter did was, right? To see, left wing governments like that come out and, denounce it, even though they have stricter freedom of speech laws than we do. Just tells you everything you need to know that, Twitter definitely overstepped its boundaries. But I have struggled with, the concept of them being, private companies and being able to have their own terms of service versus, just trying to maintain freedom of speech. And I think that I still haven't decided exactly, where I really stand on that. One thing I do know, I am borderline of free speech absolutist outside of direct threats of violence. But at the same time, the libertarian streak in me do not want to regulate private companies on these matters. However, I do think that what Twitter is doing is dangerous, and seeing them actually do it, kind of, goes against the libertarian thing a little bit, in which people always try to say that libertarians are unrealistic. They're not in touch with, the reality of the world. They don't understand that, the government, has to have some role in some sense. I think that this kind of plays into that criticism that a lot of libertarians get. But, I 100% understand that perspective. So I'm struggling with it. You know what I'm saying? Like, I just wish that if Twitter was going to do it, they should do it equally. And I think that's my biggest issue with all of this, is that they're not doing it equally.
Well, you know what it should be? It's I think one of the European countries said it. They said they only remove things if they're criminal. And that's what the platform should say, that if something isn't criminal, if you're not making a direct threat to somebody, if you're not extorting or blackmailing somebody by posting something or whatever, exposing, violations of people's privacy, whatever it is, if you're not committing any sort of crime, then that should be allowed. And then it should be left up to police, that you can report it and it goes immediately to 911 or whatever. And then obviously if you're falsely reporting crimes, you're going to get
Yeah.
in trouble. But people can review it and that's it. And if it's not criminal, that's it. And that makes it a lot simpler for everybody. But when you start to get on this line where it's like, oh, well, this thing's bad, but this is okay, and this is bad, and this is okay, what you're actually doing now is taking away people's freedoms in general. And that's what the libertarian argument, I think Tucker was saying it tonight. I think I caught it for a couple minutes or something, but they had somebody basically saying, well, even if you are a libertarian, if by saying you're allowing the free market or some company, some corporation to operate freely without being regulated, by doing that, it's taking away people's freedom and their rights and essentially taking away free expression from people by doing it, then in that case, the government regulation or some sort of intervention there is actually somehow the libertarian thing to do in some circular crazy logic. You know what I mean? Like even Ben Shapiro, when I talked to him, when I called into his show, that was his suggestion. He's a hardcore conservative. He wants small government, but he said people need to be able to sue. There needs to be some sort of recourse, that there needs to be a way to hold them responsible
Yeah.
for this. Because this isn't 1850 where your freedom of speech was just you go stand on some
So yeah.
soapbox somewhere and people come around and listen. You know, this is the way we communicate and reach people now is through the internet, social media. You know, so I think that this is totally different, and I think the Supreme Court needs to take this stuff up and say, you know what, this is different. This is the way. Look at it. We can't even hear from Trump. Thank God he had access to those White House accounts to post on Instagram or Facebook. He went to a new platform and then they removed that. And it's like, wow, he can't even find a way to reach the American people. What chance do we have?
Yeah. Yeah, that's
Like,
100% true. I think the biggest thing is that nobody really cared that much when it was small fries, like Milo Yiannopoulos and some of these other guys I can't think of off the top of my head. But Alex Jones, exactly. Like they don't, they didn't really care. But you just censored the president of the United States while he's still in office. That's a lot of overreaching in my opinion. And I think that's a slippery slope that probably should be dealt with at some point.
Greg, I'll tell it to you just like this, man. If this was the other way around and this was Obama in like his last couple weeks before he was leaving the White House and he got removed from Facebook and Instagram and Twitter and then he went to a new left-wing platform and then they shut that platform down, I'd be the first one like, "Hey guys, just let the man speak. Like it's the president. Like I don't care. Like you can't
Yeah.
do this. Like this is scary. This isn't right." And I wish more people on the left here would speak up because it goes to show you Angela Merkel in Germany, the chancellor there, she can't stand
Trump. Yeah.
President Trump. The president of Mexico, they can't stand President Trump. And they can at least come out and say, you know what? This is a bridge too far for me. And the fact that people on the left can't speak up now goes to show you what hypocrites they really are. Because if it was them getting removed right now, that's all we would hear is that they're living in a
Yeah.
dictatorship or fascist, and it's
Yeah.
ridiculous.
Yeah. Well, I think it will come back around to bite him in the butt. I really do. I think that right now, because the corporate world is on the side of the super wokes, I think that it's okay for now. But once they turn and they figure out that they can make more money not being as woke, right? Like they'll, once they
Right.
start to get too woke, I think they'll get a little bit of their own medicine. So we'll see what happens on that censorship front. But I know that you have been experiencing that for a long time. So I thought that maybe it'd be interesting to get your thoughts on the current censorship since you were, a little bit early on that train,
Man.
right?
Yeah, that's all I was. I used to go in the comment sections and tell everybody, guys, they're censoring me. And people were like, yeah, right. That's not happening. You just need to make better videos. And I was like getting so mad because I just noticed, even now, man, this is terrible. It's the most subscribers I ever had. And I'm not even getting half the views that I got when I was just making random videos with a crappy camera. And like, you know
Yeah.
what I mean? It's like there's just no way these numbers are right.
Yeah, I was
You
just I
know,
was just thinking about that too, man. I was like, man, like it's crazy how when I was at 50, 60,000 subscribers, like I felt like it was a lot easier for me to get 20, 30,000 views on a video. But now it's like, bro, I'm struck. I'm like,
even
damn, they
bigger.
get
You were
10,
getting 100, 200,
100,
400,000
yeah.
views,
Now I'm like, man,
and it's like
yeah. And
now
I'm
you
looking,
got a clean.
go ahead.
No, I was gonna say you got this nice, clean setup, good quality, like
Yeah,
everything's good. Obviously, you're more comfortable. Your videos are great, and
yeah,
it's like everything's going down. They're
yeah.
not. All my views come from subscribers. They're not recommending me anywhere.
I saw that too. I think 25% of my views come from non-subscribers. 75% come from subscribers. So if you're a subscriber and you've been watching every single last one of my videos, thank you, thank you. You're a real one. You're a real one.
Same here. And if you're not one of my subscribers, subscribe now. Because Greg's getting tired. They're calling you out in the chat, Greg. They said stop
Stop
yawning.
yawning. Oh, yeah. No,
They
I
said,
mean,
Greg, you're
yeah.
tired.
It's you know what I'm saying. I'm getting a little sluggish, but yeah, man. The thing is about the YouTube censorship thing. I'm just waiting for the conservative apocalypse to see if there is going to be one. My gouge for it. As long as Salty Cracker is still up, I'm good.
Right.
If he up, I'm good.
That's
Like I'm good. I know I'm good no matter
right.
him and him, Dr. Turley, who else? There's somebody else that I look at as a gouge. Like as long as they still up, I know I'm gonna be Gucci.
Yeah. 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 I'm a fan of Salty Cracker. I'm trying to reach out to him. Hey, Salty, if you're watching tonight, get
Get
back to
back
me.
to it. Yeah.
Hey, can you imagine he's been sitting here for an hour and a half watching
Yeah,
us?
yeah. I mean, yeah, I need to get on one of his streams, but yeah, as long as some people still up, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna be fine for right now. Um, and we'll see how it goes, but yeah, man, that's all I got. Yeah, like I said, if you got any more, that you want to talk about, you want to touch on?
Yeah, you know what it is? Please subscribe, like. No, No, seriously, that's pretty much it, man. I mean, I think we covered all the bases. I'm just I'm getting tired here myself too, just thinking about all this stuff. I can't believe the news cycle. Like I'm gonna go watch the other half of Tucker, and by the time I hear Hannity's voice come on, I'm probably gonna be mentally fried, because I can't believe we're at this point in the country. Like I said, I'm just shocked that it came to a point where we're so divided that we don't even want to hear from the other side and we want to attack them even when they're out of office. You're going to plan all this. It's just like, I really hope for the best, guys. I hope things get better, but it's not going to happen if we don't stand up now. We let it get to a point like this where we let them remove people like Alex Jones and people who were fringe. And now it's just to the point that we really got to, stand up and say enough's enough. If we let them take down the president, we got no shot, you know?
Yeah, no, I 100% agree with that. We definitely got to, at the very least, try to lobby McConnell to not get on board with this. I think he's the key player. I've come out, multiple videos saying I vehemently disagree with them moving forward to convict the president and take away his right to run again. I think that's the wrong move for the Republicans. It's going to destroy the party, and it's not good for anybody. So, yeah, guys, this is the end of this. I will in the future do more live streams, probably weekly, and I will have call-ins. I'm excited to talk to you guys and maybe debate some of you guys on some stuff, over the phone.
Oh, let me in on the
Let you.
call-ins.
You want to get in on the call-ins?
Yeah,
So
I'm getting excited. I don't know how to do all this stuff.
I
That's why
think
I
people
want to
do
have
it.
people on,
They
but
do it through Skype. So I think that we can do like a call in. That would actually be a great idea. Then I think about it. If you trying to join me on the call ins, that way if I don't want to answer a question, you can answer the question. You can
yeah,
talk to them because you know.
yeah, I'll be the pit
Yeah,
bull.
yeah. So yeah, man. No, I think you do this call ins through Skype. And I'll get that set up going. I probably can do that probably this week or something like that, and then test it out, and then we can go from there. And if you want to start doing call-ins, and doing that with us, and going from there, then I think that'd be a good way to get some engagement.
Yeah, I think that'd be awesome, man. Thank you again, guys. I appreciate it. Had a good time here. Thanks for some of my subs who were in here too, guys.
All right, see y'all. All right, cool, good.